We're going to look at different symbols that we will be using here. The first symbol, so we have equality and inequality symbols. So first, you have the equal symbol. And then you also have the not equal symbol here. Other symbols are getting into inequalities now. So the inequality symbols is less than and greater than. And then you have the less than or equal to. So less than or equal to symbol. And then you have the greater than or equal to symbol. So you have the less than. So whenever you're trying to identify if a number is less than or greater than, we use the symbol less than or greater than. And the reason it's the same symbol, just flipped, but you would read it like 1 is less than 2. So you'd say 1 is less than 2. And then if you flip it, 2 is greater than 1. So you just read it going left to right. That's why we just read it like a sentence. You read it left to right. 1 is less than 2. 2 is greater than 1. Or 1 is less than or equal to 1. Or 2 is greater than or equal to 2. Or 2 is greater than or equal to 1. You would just read it going left to right with those inequality symbols. But they're the same symbol. They're just flipped around. And then this equal sign here, the less than or equal to, this equal sign is indicating equal, meaning it could be equal or it could be less than. So 1 is less than or equal to 3. That's also a true statement. 1 is less than or equal to 3. And 1 is also less than or equal to 1 because it's equal to 1. So those less than or equal to inequalities, they could fall into two different categories. So let's go ahead and compare some numbers here. So we just want to insert less than, greater than, or equal in the space between each pair of numbers. So first we have 3 and 5. 3 is less than 5. This is a smaller number than 5, so we use the less than symbol. 3 is less than 5. 2 is greater than 0. 0, blank 0. 0 is equal to 0. I'm going to say equal to. Then we have negative 2 is less than positive 2. Make sure you know your negative numbers there if you're on a negative, or if you're on a number line. Negative 2, 0, 2. Negative 2 is smaller than positive 2. So we want to use that less than symbol. Another pair of negatives, negative 6 and negative 5. Careful here. Negative 6 and negative 5. If you are on a number line, negative 6 is further negative than negative 5. Negative 5 is closer to 0. If a number is closer to 0 on the negative side, that means it's bigger. Like negative 1 is bigger than negative 5. Negative 5 is then bigger than negative 6. So the symbol I'm going to use is negative 6 is less than negative 5. Because negative 5 is bigger. So the open end is opening towards the bigger number. So it's opening up towards the 5 for 3 is less than 5. It's opening up towards the negative 5 because negative 6 is less than negative 5. Now in 7, we have an example where it's 12 over 3 and then comparing it to 3. So 12 over 3 is actually 4. So you want to simplify that down and understand that 12 over 3 is just a visual representation of 4. It's a fraction. So 12 over 3 is 4. That means 4 is greater than 3. And then the next set of examples I have is using the less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And the reason that I have it branched off into two is because you can't really say put a less than, greater than, equal to, or a less than or equal to, greater than, because you can do it for any of these really. Like 0, for this one, 0 and 0, I could technically say 0 is less than or equal to 0. I could technically say 0 is greater than or equal to 0 because it's equal to 0. So that would always be true for, I could put any of those in. That's why I don't necessarily want to do those examples as a less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. I wanted to keep those separate because you got to pick one or the other, less than or greater than or equal to. But let's identify if these statements are true or false. So number 8, 10 is less than or equal to 9. 10 is less than or equal to 9. That is false because 9 is less than 10, so that is a false statement. 4 is less than or equal to 5. That is a true statement. Number 10, 1 is greater than or equal to 0. That is true. 1 is bigger than 0. So that's true. And number 11, 1 is less than or equal to 1. That is also true. 1 is less than or equal to 1. It's equal to 1. So 1 is equal to 1. So that makes it true. So it doesn't have to be strictly less than a number if it has that equal. So less than or equal to. So that one is true. I also want to practice, since we're talking about inequalities, I want to practice translating sentences into mathematical statements, because that is a really big skill that people struggle with a lot. It is definitely a skill that people really struggle, and it's a really important skill, because as you move through your math career, translating in from complicated word problems into actual number statements is so critical and so important. And reading word problems is always a big, kind of a scary topic for a lot of people. So translate each sentence into a mathematical statement. Number 12, 8 is less than or equal to 9. So the word is means equal. So whenever you see that word is, that's usually indicating an equal sign is going to be present. So we have the word 8. So 8 is less than or equal to. And in this case, we're trying to write an inequality. So instead of writing like 8 is, usually typically it would be like 8 is equal to something. We're just going to use the inequality because what they're saying is that 8 is equal to 8 is less than or equal to 9. So we're going to say less than or equal to 9. So you have to read the whole sentence before you just throw in an equal sign, because typically you might say like 8 is 5 less than 4, or 5 less than a number. But in this case it says 8 is less than or equal to. So you'd want to write that as 8 is less than or equal to 9. Less than or equal to 9. Number 13, 7 is greater than 2. So 7 is greater than 2. 4 is not equal to 5. So 4 is not equal to 5. So you have that not equal to symbol that we talked about up here. Not equal to is an equal sign with just a slash going through it, indicating it's not equal to that. 4 is not equal to 5. Also want to take a look at absolute value. Absolute value is a big topic, and a lot of people don't really know what absolute value is. Like, they understand how to find absolute value. Like, if I asked, like, number 16 right now, if you were to just look at number 16 and said, what's the absolute value of negative 6, you'd most likely know the answer. But some people don't really know what the, like, why is it the answer? Like, why do we get the answers for absolute value? The absolute value of a number is the distance from 0. So it's the distance from 0. So what I mean by that is if we're on a number line, and here's 0, and you're at negative 2 and positive 2. If I ask, what's the distance from 0 for negative 2? How far away are we from 0 if we're at negative 2? Well, I'd be 2 units away. I'm 2 units away from 0 when I'm at negative 2. What about positive 2? 1, 2. I'm 2 units away. So the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2 because I am 2 units away from 0. The absolute value of 2 is also positive 2 because I'm 2 units away from 0. That's what absolute value is. It's the distance from 0. It's the distance between A, if you want to call this A, so the absolute value of A. It's the distance from A to 0. So the absolute value of A is A. Don't confuse that with this. This is different. If I had the absolute value, if I have the negative absolute value of A equals, I wouldn't just say that's A because the absolute value is always positive. This is going to be negative A because this is a negative 1 times A. So don't confuse that. But if it's absolute value of negative A, that's going to be A, or negative 5, and negative 6, negative 7. That's going to be positive because it's the distance from 0. A lot of people just understand that as it's always the positive of a number, so it can never be negative. Not necessarily true, because the example I'll show you in a second. Number 15, absolute value of 6. How far away is 6 from 0? 6 is 6 units away. Absolute value of 6 is 6. Number 16, absolute value of negative 6. Same thing. we're at -6, just like on this number line here, if I'm at -6, how many units away am I? 6 units away. It's at 6. Number 17, absolute value of 0. If I'm at 0, how far away am I from 0? I'm 0 units away. The absolute value of 0 is 0. This is what I meant by it's not always going to be just a positive number, because the absolute value of 0 is 0. There's no negative or positive 0. 0 is just 0. Then 18, the absolute value of -2/3. That is going to be positive 2/3. Now I want to compare, since we were just talking about comparing, I want to compare some numbers when we have absolute values. Just like how I said with that one problem, I think it was 12/3 or 12/4 or something. You want to simplify that down. I think it was 12/3. You want to simplify it down to 4. Just like when you have absolute values, you want to evaluate what is that absolute value actually, what is it? So the absolute value of 0 is 0. So really what I'm comparing here is 0 and 3. 0 is less than 3. The absolute value of -4 is positive 4. The absolute value of -3 is positive 3. So the symbol that we're going to use here, I put this problem here for a reason. The symbol we're going to use here is greater than. Because when you look at this originally, like ignore the absolute value signs for a second. If you look at just -4 and -3, you would put in less than, because -3 is bigger than -4. -3 is closer to 0. But when we evaluate the absolute value of it, 4 is greater. The -4 is more units away from 0. It's further away from 0. So that's why 4 is greater than 3 in this case, because the absolute value of -4 is 4. Absolute value of -3 is 3. So we're going to use the greater than symbol there. Good problem there. Absolute value of 6 and absolute value of -10. So this is just 6, and this is 10. So that's going to be less than. Same argument there. When you just look at the numbers, you would think, oh, 6 is bigger than -10. But when you take the absolute value, you see that 10 is further away from 0. So that's going to be a less than symbol.